What I love is that he calls it a highbrow New York comedy. I got to remind you, there is this scene where there's a man with Huggies and pantyhose on his head running down the street with banjo music and yodeling, with cops chasing him, shooting guns, people getting hit in the head with sticks. Like, what is highbrow about this?
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane...
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you even remember what Blockbuster Video was? If you answered yes, and this is the podcast for you, I'm one of your three hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Big D.
Good evening.
And Gene Lyons.
When there was no crawdad to be found, we ate sand.
And each week, you, the audience, select from 4 movie choices that we then break out our VHS tape rewinder and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. At the end of each podcast, the three of us will provide you with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe and download wherever fine podcasts are found and follow us all over social media. This week's movie choices, Big D, were Nicolas Cage, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. We had The Rock, Face Off, Con Air, and Raising Arizona, which dominated with 59%.
Yeah, I was super excited because Gene and I live in Arizona, and I was looking forward to this movie being a time capsule of Arizona in 1987. Gene, did it disappoint at all?
No, absolutely not. The sets, the depictions, the scenery, all of it was accurate. It was very, it was a walk or a stroll down memory lane for me. It tugged at my heartstrings, made me miss a bygone era of Arizona that was ruined by people moving into the state. So back to you, Raj.
I was also looking forward to a time capsule, a period piece in which Nicolas Cage had not yet gone full Nick Cage. Right, 1987 was the year for Nick Cage. In addition to having this movie, which is one of his most highly reviewed movies, he also struck a big with Moonstruck. The Coen brothers, who this was their second big feature film that they did, they really reined in Nick Cage. As per the research that I did, Nick Cage had very different ideas for his character, and the Coen brothers kept telling him no. The only thing Nick Cage was allowed to do was his hair, and I feel as a result of that, we got a good yet bottled in Nick Cage performance.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Raj, because I couldn't tell what was different about it. I mean, I knew that he was doing comedy, whereas he now normally does, sort of action and drama sort of stuff. But this was the most enjoyable I've ever seen Nick Cage, and he really explored, like, he was making me laugh from start to finish, which is something he's never done in any other movie, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And I think that sounds about right. That the Coen brothers gave him sufficient direction. They were nitpicky enough that they nailed that character together.
A lot of Nicolas Cage movies, he just rambles and he gets kind of on these tangents and goes crazy. Here, he is a quiet character who sits back. He's a man of few words, but when he says something, it's usually very funny. So I like that. If it was the Coen brothers, God bless them. I think we need an intervention and get him back into Nick's life.
Yeah, I just feel like people are afraid to give Nick Cage direction anymore because he has like very intense conversations from interviews that Paul Scheer, who's one of my favorite guys, he's on The League and he hosts a couple podcasts, How Did This Get Made, and a couple others. He did a movie with Nick Cage recently, and he said that Nick Cage got involved in a very intense conversation with him about his knife collection. And there was one time where Paul, I think, misdid his lines, and Nick Cage like yelled at him, like legit right in his face. So you can probably tell while Nick Cage is probably legitimately psychotic at this point in time in 2017. But in 1987, I feel like 30 years ago, he was still a little bit reserved. He was still probably finding his career.
Just a quick apology to anybody who experiences psychosis or is psychotic. We didn't mean that in any offensive way. That's just Raj being Raj.
So Raising Arizona is a 1987 American crime comedy film directed, written, and produced by the Coen brothers and stars, of course, Nick Cage, Holly Hunter, William Forsythe, Jonathan Goodman, Frances McDormand, and Randall Tex Cobb. While it was not a blockbuster at the time of its release, it has since achieved cult status, and in a manner typical of Coen Brothers fare, the movie is replete with symbolism, visual gags, unconventional characters, flamboyant camera work, biblical references, pathos, and idiosyncratic dialogue and language. The film ranks 31st on the American Film Institute's 100 Years, Hundreds Laughed list and 45th on Bravo's 100 Funniest Movies list. I was excited, like I said, to see this movie. I hadn't seen it since 1987. When I first saw it with my parents in the theater. I didn't get it at the time, and I'm not sure if I still get it. What were your memories of this film?
I don't think I'd really seen the movie as a whole before this viewing. And I mentioned it last week that I'd been pulling for The Rock because I thought that was, some of the best. Granted, it is a Bruckheimer explosion fest, much akin to Transformers, which I despise. But I said, you know what? I'll give it a chance. And I got to be honest with you. I don't know how the hell I hadn't seen it before. And you guys were right. I think it stands up, and it's probably one of my top comedies now.
For me, I saw this several times as a kid. Growing up, like I mentioned before, in a Iranian American household, we didn't watch a lot of kind of hillbilly comedies or any Coen Brothers at all. And so this for me was something that I saw whenever I'd go stay over at friends' houses. I had a friend, David Schaefer. When I was 9 years old, we'd watch this movie all the time, laugh our asses off, and it was just a favorite of mine growing up. Because for us, it was really the first. You see Arizona movies; it's always westerns and stuff, and this is the first time I think we had seen our backyard in a movie, and it was funny. We loved all the characters, and that's a really interesting thing about this movie is it is really applicable on a lot of levels. As a kid watching it as an adult, it's a different experience entirely, but still equally enjoyable.
Well, like you said, you had never seen your state, your hometown filmed, unless it was a Western. And true to form of the Coen Brothers, this was all filmed on location in and around Arizona, primarily the Scottsdale area. But then there's different landmarks around that you can still recognize today, like the Nathan, Arizona household is the Jokaki Resort right off of Camelback Road. The Stop and Shop is actually now a Circle K, but it's still there. The water tower is still there. The bank is still there. The unpainted furniture that Nathan, Arizona owns is actually a Home Depot. So these are all things that still exist in Arizona. So you coming from Arizona, you must have loved it. The only thing that was really filmed on location in Florida, in Orlando, that I can actually identify is Ernest Saves Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, they're about equal in prestige and notoriety,
I agree.
So that's good.
The Coen Brothers always, like you say, have literary allusions, biblical references. They're no stranger to this. And when I looked at the character of the apocalyptic motorcycle rider, I thought that I was searching all over the internet to find some sort of symbolism, to find the hidden meaning, because I'm not smart enough to pick this up on my own. And then I discovered that when the Coen Brothers have been asked many times about the meaning of Raising Arizona, they respond with, "We just wanted to make a comedy." There's no hidden meaning behind this movie whatsoever. Did you find that fascinating?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I remember we would watch this movie, and the theory was that Leonard Smalls was actually a grown-up Nathan Jr., and that's what the booties were all about, and that he'd somehow come back from the past, the future or something like that. And it's very clear upon watching it, several times. That's not the case at all. It's just cool stuff. I love the attention to detail for his character, where you get a picture of, where he came from, what he's all about, but you don't get a whole backstory either. They give you enough clues about him. And really, one of the great things about Raising Arizona and other Coen Brothers movies is that you get characters where you don't get a lot of their past or their future, but their now is very clear about who they are and what they're all about. So it was really interesting to watch as an adult. And yeah, I agree. It makes it way cooler that they weren't trying to hide a bunch of hidden meaning in there.
Well, the Coen Brothers spent about $5 million to make this movie, so it was very low budget. And like I said, it wasn't even, while it wasn't necessarily a blockbuster, it still grossed 4 times the budget of their first film, Blood Simple, which was a thriller horror. The movie grossed ultimately $22.8 million in North America and another $6.3 million overseas. So it made good money. And again, it set the Coen Brothers on the path towards stardom. Yeah, so one of the other interesting facts I found is the Coen Brothers kept having to fire the babies because they kept getting older and like walking and doing things that newborns aren't supposed to be able to do.
Yeah, that's a big problem with it. They were much older than newborns. And the strange thing is, every adult character in this movie breaks down and cries at some point. Some of them multiple times. The only ones not to cry is Nathan Jr. in whichever version of the 15 baby actors he was.
Well, I feel like all the babies kind of look like your baby. Like they have blonde hair, blue eyes, very Nordic looking. But one of the other interesting things that I found is the Coen brothers also wrote and directed the Hudsucker proxy. There's Hudsucker Industries, right, that Tim Robbins works for. Well, they originally wanted to do the Hudsucker proxy first before Raising Arizona, but they ended up doing Raising Arizona obviously first. Well, the company that HI works for, if you notice and you look closely, it's Hudsucker Industries, which, again, indie filmmakers, the Coen brothers, always dropping little Easter eggs like that for us. But am I alone in thinking that Nick Cage, in the entire time, if you close your eyes throughout the movie, he's doing like a Kevin Costner Southern accent?
Yeah, I didn't hear that at all. I mean, I thought he was kind of doing his own thing. I found Holly Hunter's accent far more egregious in this movie, which is, I think, just the way Holly Hunter talks. But Arizona does have the weird thing, and Ohio does it too, where people have a drawl inexplicably. Like, you don't know why they have an accent. Because Arizona is fairly accent neutral, really.
I had to remind myself multiple times in watching this that this was Nicolas Cage. Because this individual on screen, he was, like we had mentioned, it was earlier in his life, and he actually hadn't gained the creative control of his characters. It was a completely original performance. I liked him. I wanted to watch him. It was engaging and original. I can't remember Nick Cage ever being this compelling on screen. I know you love Moonstruck, but I think this is definitely one of his best performances.
Could you see any other character playing this role other than Nick Cage?
No chance.
Well, Kevin Costner auditioned 3 times for this movie. And Kevin Costner was a fairly up-and-coming big star at this time in 1987, and he ended up not getting it. But it was interesting that I thought that Nick Cage was doing a Kevin Costner accent, and then Kevin Costner turned out really wanted this role. Well, the last fact that we'll have here is Herb Drinkwater, the mayor of Scottsdale, Arizona, at the time of this movie, proclaimed that the film, Raising Arizona, had no redeeming social value, and is on record saying, "How do people even think to write something like this? It certainly isn't the image Arizona wants to project, and it certainly isn't the image Arizona wants." So, I mean, like, this is just Scottsdale being Scottsdale, right, Gene?
I like the fact that Gene is a native, and he takes this movie as a source of pride. So I don't know what Herb is talking about.
Well, it's exactly that divide that Raj is trying to point out. I'm not a Scottsdale native. I grew up in Tempe and Chandler with the rabble, and didn't grow up in Scottsdale, where they take their Arizona very seriously. So they don't want to associate with the trash of Chandler and Apache Junction and places like that. Whereas to me, those are points of pride. I love going out on the Apache Trail. I like going to Apache Junction, and I grew up with friends in trailer parks, and that's cool, man. Like, so I could see where Herb Drinkwater, who has a street named after him, by the way, in Scottsdale, would be, and it's still to this day, the Scottsdale people, like Raj, they won't leave the green zone. They consider it that's their version of Arizona that's very safe and sterilized.
It is very nice. Well, without further ado, Big D, roll the trailer.
Son, you got a panty on your head. Just drive fast, eh?
Turn to the right!
The first time I met Ed was in the county lockup in Tempe, Arizona. You're a flower, you are. A day I'll never forget.
I do.
You bet I do.
Okay, then.
My lawless years were behind me. Our child-rearing years lay ahead. But biology conspired to keep us childless.
You go right back up there and get me a toddler. I need a baby hide. I got more than I can handle.
At the time, Ed's little plan seemed like the solution to all our problems. And the answer to all our prayers.
He's beautiful.
What? Are you kidding? We got us a family here.
I want Nathan Jr. back!
What's his name?
Ed Jr.
Hi, Junior.
So far, we've just been using Junior.
We call him Junior.
He's out there somewhere.
Hold on, Nathan. We're gonna go pick up Daddy.
I've been taking these Huggies and whatever cash you got.
You busted out of jail.
We released for Shaz on our own recognizance.
What Double here is trying to say is that we felt the institution no longer had anything to offer us.
We got a child now. Everything's changed.
Where's Junior? Who the hell are you?
Oh, man.
We're absolutely going to get him back. Just ain't no question about that.
Give me that baby, you warthog from hell!
Hey, you want to know another thing? I'm going to be a better person from here on out. Let's go get Nathan Jr.
Raising Arizona, a comedy beyond belief.
Well, it ain't Ozzie and Harriet.
Convenience store robber Herbert or Hi McDonough, played by Nicolas Cage, and police officer Edwina Holly Hunter meet after she takes the mugshots of the recidivist. With continued visits, Hi learns that Ed's fiancé has left her. Hi proposes to her after his latest release from prison, and the two get married. They move to a desert mobile home, and Hi gets a job at a machine shop. They want to have children, but Ed is infertile, and they cannot adopt because of Hi's criminal record, despite the fact that Ed is a police officer. Devastated, Ed resigns her job. The couple learns of the Arizona Quints, sons of locally famous furniture magnate Nathan Arizona, played by Trey Wilson. Hi and Ed kidnap one of the 5 babies, whom they believe to be Nathan Jr.
So last week we had, Blade Runner, which we complained about the narration and the exposition. I think Raising Arizona is the complete opposite. I watched this on a flight from Orlando to Utah, and I could not contain myself. The first 5 minutes, I think, is almost a perfect section of storytelling. It is like Hi is our friend. He's got us on board. He's telling us the entire story right up until the title card comes in. And I realized, oh my God, the movie's been going on 5 minutes and I'm already in it so far. I didn't even notice we hadn't even got all the intro to the movie. So I think it's nearly flawless storytelling.
And in concert with that, Big D, you've got the visuals there. So you've got the narration going, which is brilliant, but they don't leave you with just that. Hi's shirt, the way they depict Tempe, Arizona in the 80s, the costuming, the design of the sets, everything is so much, there's so many little details there. Barry Goldwater on the wall, the people, the way the people are dressed, that is to a T Arizona in the 80s. So I was in love within the first 5 minutes, just like you, hearing that great narration and then seeing all these visuals that really put you in a place where you know exactly, they take advantage of the setting and make the most of it.
I think most of the characters truly are unique. Even the parole board, each character is individually their own. We see them for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and they're developed enough that you almost feel like you know these people. I think it was fantastic. I didn't grow up in Arizona, but within that first 5 minutes, I got that vibe down pat. But I want to talk about one of the big themes of the movie is whether it's believable that Ed, would leave the force and Hi would do something this drastic. My wife and I had issues with infertility as well. So for 6 years, we went through exactly what Ed and Hi went through. And it's really not only trying on a marriage, but trying on each individual partner. Because if you truly want a child and you're in a place where you should be able to have them and you don't, you start to look at those who do, and you start to judge even though you don't want to or you shouldn't. And not that we were ready to go to drastic measures as far as stealing a child, but that feeling where they look at the Arizona family and can say, well, they have enough. Why do they have so many? We should have some. As far-fetched as it sounds to those who've never gone through it, I can see where Ed was coming from. And for me, it really pulled on my heartstrings.
Speaking of that infertility, it's a fine example of the way they talk about it. They don't just say Ed was infertile. They refer to her insides as a barren place where my seed could find no purchase. That sort of writing, this is a different kind of poetry than Pulp Fiction. But again, it's, as we love Pulp Fiction, here again, I'm in love with the fact that they take the time to write the lines in a way that a normal person might not actually say that, But it's interesting. There's a beauty to the way everything is presented to you, and that carries out throughout the movie. Anytime High is narrating, you get these really just gorgeously different ways of explaining things.
Yeah, it's almost a form of like Arizona hillbilly poetry. The fact where he says she looked as fruitful as the Tennessee Valley, but her insides were barren. I just started cracking up. Who writes that? But it makes you buy into the entire ridiculousness of the story, of the plot, of the way it's done. Without that, it doesn't work.
And in contrast with High, you've got Nathan Arizona, who, again, drastically different voice. He talks totally differently. But again, it's got there's so much character to the way he talks. When he's talking about what Nathan Jr. was wearing when he was abducted, and he says he's wearing a goddamn dinner jacket, and he's wearing jammies with Yodas and shit, like that's amazing stuff. What's interesting about that actually is that there is a local car dealership called Earnhardt. They do Ford, Toyota, all sorts of.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tex Earnhardt is the head of that, right? And he is a former bull rider. And I remember when I was a kid, again in '87, Tex Earnhardt they would have car washes at the dealership, and he would stand out there in Wrangler jeans with a cowboy hat on, no shirt on, with all of his bull riding scars and a hose, and he'd just be hosing off cars. And he would do that same thing where his line was, Nathan Arizona says, "Or my name ain't Nathan Arizona." Tex Earnhardt said, "That ain't no bull," and so he would appear on screen with a cow and say, "That ain't no bull." That was his catch line. So I almost wonder if Nathan Arizona was based on Tex Earnhardt, who's still doing those commercials to this day.
Yeah, and you talk about that writing and that prose that the Coen brothers bring to all their movies. This is truly on center stage throughout the entire Raising Arizona. The funniest parts to me of this movie are all the peripheral characters. You talk about the scene where the cop is explaining to the police and the FBI agents what the baby was wearing. In the background, just the shots and the dialogue, the quickness of it and the wittiness of it. If you're not paying full attention, you're going to miss how brilliant the writing is. And I think that for me really made the movie is the Coen brothers paid attention to peripheral characters who most directors and most writers would just put in the background. You talk about Michael Bay, he would have a streetcar running through, someone's tomato cart. That's the difference between the Coen brothers and Michael Bay.
And when you tie that beautiful writing with the cinematography and the shot selection, I love the simple time where High is describing the build-up to the bad news, and he says, "These were the happy days." And he's standing there watering his dirt lawn with Ed on like a pool chair. And it was just such a symmetry of beautiful words juxtaposed to this ridiculous scene outside of a trailer. Gorgeous.
Well, do you know who the cinematographer for this film was?
I don't.
Barry Sonnenfeld. So this was one of his last movies as a cinematographer before he, went out on his own and started making his own directorial movies, Men in Black and Addams Family and all that kind of stuff. So, and they had all worked together for they had worked on not The Walking Dead. What is The Evil Dead? They all worked on The Evil Dead with Sam Raimi. So those camera shots of like the babies that, from the baby's view, that was all kind of cutting art that they learned from Sam Raimi and using kind of unique creative shots like that they brought to Raising Arizona, which again, really make this film. He uses unique camera perspectives to tell the story versus, again, explosions. And even though there are explosions, I'm talking about Michael Bay, it's all explosions and slow motion.
And I just wanted to close out by saying I'm very glad that my wife and I were blessed to have a child, so we didn't have to go through adoption or buy a ladder and go find a house with quintuplets. So if you're in that same situation, don't get down, don't get depressed, don't kidnap a baby. Just continue to work at it, and hopefully things will work out.
Gene and I were actually lamenting the fact that there was no ladder pratfalls in this movie.
Yeah, I really missed the scene that I love so much from Christmas Vacation. Anytime you have a ladder, you got to have ladder pranks. I was so glad that they were smart enough to just forego the ladder pranks, have the ladder act like a normal ladder. And there was a really cute moment though, where Nathan Jr. is looking over his mother's shoulder, and he sees High in the window, and High. I mean, again, Nicolas Cage is just the visual comedy there is hilarious without making a ladder prank. It was great.
Well, High and Ed return home and are soon visited by High's cellmates, Gail and Evil Snotes, played by John Goodman and William Forsythe, who have just escaped from prison. Under the brothers' influence, High is tempted to return to his felonious ways. Their problems get worse when High's supervisor, Glenn, played by Sam McMurray, proposes wife-swapping and High assaults him. That night, High decides to steal a package of diapers for the baby, but gets carried away and starts to rob the convenience store. Ed sees this and, furious, drives off without him. High is then forced to flee on foot from the convenience store, chased by 2 police officers and 2 armed cashiers who attempt to shoot him down, as well as a pack of neighborhood dogs, but he manages to outrun and lose them. Ed eventually picks him up, leading to a tense ride home.
Right. This is essentially the crescendo of the movie, and it comes pretty early. But for me, this scene, the way that they are having the packs of dogs, the cops, the convenience store kid, everything moshing together in this amazingly synchronized action scene, and that great classic line, "The son, you got a panty on your head." Like, that's just, it's amazing. You got the yodeling going on. As a 7-year-old kid, I was cracking up. Still holds up to this day. And one of the best parts that I'd forgotten, and I realized that when he was watching this, is that while he's being pursued, he actually goes into a second store because he's got to get those Huggies. And they can't just be diapers; they got to be actual Huggies. So all these comic elements playing, off one another. The cop getting hit with the Huggies, and the shopping cart lady knocking into him. If you haven't seen this movie and you don't want to watch this movie, just watch that scene, the Huggies theft scene. It's worth the price of admission alone.
Well, there's one thing that I'm sure glad hasn't changed about Arizona, and it's the willingness of people just to pull out their guns and shoot. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, I'm home in Arizona. People are just pulling out their guns and shooting people for absolutely nothing. I guess just Huggies, right? That's the only thing that he has done wrong is take some Huggies. But like you said, it is a very comical scene.
Yeah, I was actually guilty of owning half of the firearms displayed in that scene, so that was kind of terrifying too. I've got the double barrel shotgun and the 357. I was kind of, I don't know what that says about me. I've been in this state too long.
But that music, I could not imagine that working in any other scene or any other film. The whistling and the yodeling as they're chasing through the houses, it was perfect together. And I've never lived in Arizona, but do people discharge their firearms with that kind of a recklessness?
Yeah, there's actually a law called Caitlin's Law in Arizona, which it prohibits the firing of your firearms into the air because people do it so often. And this girl, Caitlin, had gotten hit by a bullet that came down out of the sky. So it was a real big problem in the 80s. It's kind of died down a little bit, but back in the day, it was very normal to just hear outside in the night, especially if there was like a Friday or Saturday night, just guns going off all the time.
What are you doing questioning firearms and when it goes off? You live in Florida. Florida's like worse than Arizona.
Oh, come on. Listen. Yes, we have issues with firearms because they're everywhere. But in this, everybody is packing heat. Everybody's got a gun. Every clerk pulls it out and just starts shooting. The police, they have revolvers, but yet they're shooting like 40, 60 rounds without reloading. It is just gun happy. Okay, what about the supermarket manager just shooting his produce and firing down the aisles? That doesn't happen in Florida.
Yeah. Now you know why I live in the green zone in Scottsdale.
So I want to talk for a moment about Glenn. When we watched Christmas Vacation, I thought that Cousin Eddie was like the only good part of Christmas Vacation. The only thing that made me laugh. I realized in watching this after watching Christmas Vacation that Cousin Eddie seems like a direct ripoff of Glenn. Even the family seems, you got the little shitty kids, and he thinks they're all cute. They got too many of them. They don't they're writing fart on the wall, and Cousin Eddie's got the, or Glenn's got the, the weird clothes, and is real proud of his wife and all that stuff. Did you guys get that vibe that this is basically just, Cousin Eddie came 2 years later, totally based on Glenn?
Yeah, I got that very same feeling. How about the bad Pollock jokes? Again, delivered brilliantly by the actor who's playing Glenn, but could you make those same jokes today? If this movie was made in today's politically correct climate?
I think you could, because he's such a reprehensible character that you're just like, I think people would understand that that's just the kind of shithead he is.
Yeah. Well, the Polish get their justice in the end. Well, at the McDonough residence the next day, Glenn approaches High to fire him and reveals that he has deduced that Junior's identity because of the newspaper article he read about Junior missing, and blackmails High, threatening to turn him over to the police unless Glenn and Dot get custody of Junior. Gail and Evil overhear this conversation and turn on High, tying him to a chair and taking Junior for themselves. Gail and Evelle leave with plans to rob a hayseed bank with Junior in tow. When Ed comes home, she frees High, and the two arm themselves and set out together to retrieve the child. En route, Ed suggested they should end their marriage after recovering the boy.
So the beginning of this kidnapping, when Gail and Eville are going to kidnap Nathan out of the trailer, I've always wondered about this. Whenever in a trailer, you realize how fragile they are, right? You're inside of a trailer and you realize that these walls are not very thick. It's a very narrow space. And I always thought, what if a fight broke out in a trailer? What would it look like? And they answer this question.
Well, this supposedly has heavily influenced other films such as Kill Bill, Kill Volume 2, where they have the entire fight scene. It's more of a true fight scene, very, choreographed, but it all takes place in a trailer. And I think it steals a lot of its cues from this fight, where they're just kind of breaking through walls and pulling out stuff. And, like you said, they're not manufactured to withstand anything, let alone indoor fight or a hurricane.
No, and this scene is hilarious. You got the spinning around, the beating over the head, like going through walls, and in all these situations, it's great too, because Nicolas Cage is so much smaller than John Goodman. Visually, it's hilarious, and the cheese puffs on the ground, everything. I mean, I just can't get over how funny this scene was. I actually watched that scene, twice, just because it was so gratifying.
And we talk about how great that the Coen brothers' camera work is, that they use a lot of non-traditional angles and techniques that we see it later, in the robbery, and then also some of the chase scenes at the very end. How did they get some of those shots inside of a trailer? It is such a small area. For them to shoot that, I would almost like to see a behind the scenes if they had a trailer with the sides blown out. Any idea how they did that?
No idea, but I did read something that Barry Connenfeld actually had Nicolas Cage carrying a camera in front of him to get that kind of his perspective of his face going through the trailer. But he's quoted as saying it turned out too weird. So I don't know the answer to that, but it wouldn't surprise me that they probably did cut out some portion, because again, this is the 1987. The digital cameras and portable cameras really hadn't been invented at this point.
So in addition to what they were doing visually, what I really like in this is that the action's been turned up from, we had the original, the Huggies theft, and it gets more and more ridiculous, and the action's getting to a point where it's a scream at this point. It's a fever pitch. And so that prolonged yelling and crying that they do, that all the characters are doing, there's crying, there's you got the Gail and Eville just screaming their heads off, and all the yelling. I mean, the entire trailer fight is yelling. In any other movie, this would be annoying. If you caught me on a bad day, I'd be like, this is stupid. This is just juvenile crap. But the world that they've created in the first, hour or 45 minutes really makes it so that you're almost excited by how much yelling and stuff is going on. I thought it was just absolutely well done. Again, getting me to like a movie that's loud that's a chore.
I disagree. I found that Gail and Eville were annoying, and the screaming grated on me. It didn't seem like it served a purpose. We have that 30-second scream when they Shawshank themselves out of the penitentiary. Then they do it again later on when they leave the baby behind. It just went a bit too much, and maybe it was because I didn't care so much for the characters, but it bothered me, and I was just like, oh, God, please stop. It was like you and the nerd laugh.
But is there truth to being overwhelmed as a parent? Because High kind of freaks out too, right?
Yeah, 100%. If you do not have children, okay, you don't know what truly feeling caged in can be. I love my daughter. I wanted her. Like I told you, we worked 6 years for her and probably spent $35,000 in medical treatments to finally have her. But there are times where you just hit, when the child's real young and you have not slept in almost 2 days or a day, it seems like. And you're at your wit's end to sometimes I thought, I just want to get up and just like run, open the door and just start running, not leave, not go anywhere in particular, but you just hit a point. So to me, it felt real when High wants to just run away, and I could understand his pain.
Well, meanwhile, Nathan Arizona Sr. is approached by the bounty hunter Leonard Smalls, played by Randall Tex Cobb, who offers to find the child for $50,000. Nathan Sr. declines the offer, believing that Smalls himself is his son's kidnapper. Smalls decides to recover the child anyway to sell on the black market. He begins tracking Gail and Evel and learns of their bank robbery plans.
So one of the things watching this as an adult that I caught that I didn't catch as a child, when I was a child, when I saw the lone biker of the apocalypse, Leonard Smalls, I thought that he was being portrayed as like the toughest dude in the world. Like he was the toughest dude I've ever seen. I'm like, he blows up rabbits with grenades, like flowers catch fire. I didn't realize that this was hyperbole. So as a kid, I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. Now it's so funny because of the fact that he is, again, you've got this character who could just be this monolithic sort of, faceless killing machine. And no, they took the time to really flesh him out. What are the booties all about? His tattoo on his arm, the way he interacts with the world, catching flies out of midair and stuff like that. They just did a really, really great job with Leonard Smalls.
Yeah, and I remember being scared of, like you said, as a child, being scared. But I thought that there was more to this character, but there's really not. Again, it's just a crazy, zany character that the Coen brothers wanted to put in their movie. Did you guys have any kind of thoughts or ideas or theories on why he also has the same Roadrunner tattoo as Nicolas Cage's character?
Wait, he has a Roadrunner tattoo?
Yeah, they both have the Roadrunner on their arm.
And I never caught that. I thought he just had the Mama Didn't Love Me.
No. He has a Roadrunner on his chest. The biker of the apocalypse, Leonard Smalls, has it on his chest, but Nicolas Cage High has it on his right arm.
But again, I'm so glad. I totally expected when I saw the tattoo on the biker, oh my God, there's going to be some common thread that they're going to be, oh, you have that? Oh, you're not that bad. And when they just show them both, but yet it really meant nothing, I loved it. I thought it was great. And the biker, I don't know have either of you guys ever watched American Dad?
Yes.
Did you see that each Christmas they do an episode that borders on almost like South Park, where they really push the boundaries? About 3 years ago, they did one called The Rapture. And in The Rapture, there is a character that I swear to God has to be based on the biker in this. And it is him fighting all the demons, the apocalypse has come, and he's fighting the final battle. And I'll find a link to put in the notes. But all I could think of watching this was how perfect he was. He is what every biker villain should have been since. And you think instead we got with that cheesy ass metal faced biker and weird signs.
To give you an example of how bad a common thread could be in a movie where they try to like bring it out and make you go, whoa. I want to take you to a little movie called Superman versus Batman: Dawn of Justice. The Martha scene, if you know what I'm talking about. I almost threw my remote through the TV when I was like, oh, fuck off. Like, oh, who's Martha? Wait, Martha who? Okay, no.
Oh, why did you say her name?
Yeah.
Swear to me.
But I didn't remember how dark Leonard was, though. I thought I when he dies in the movie, I felt bad for him when I was a kid because I thought he was just some guy who was trying to rescue the baby. I didn't realize, no, he's an extortionist. Like he is a bad piece of shit.
No, but worse, he was obviously abducted as a child himself and sold on the black market. He wants to turn around and sell Nathan Jr. There's nothing redeemable about him, but yet we still love him.
I thought that he was a demon. I thought that he was some sort of character from beyond the grave that was there to kidnap children as a child. And again, today, and then there's that speaking in the office that he has at Nathan, Arizona, in the unpainted Arizona office, where I was like, oh, it's just some dude who's like really dirty and rides a motorcycle. But this scene has been, like you said, in addition to American Dad, it's been lampooned over and over and over again. The scene where he's riding the motorcycle, it's my favorite scene, where he's like blowing up the bunny as they're telling the tale of the apocalypse rider, but also when he flies by the lizard and the lizard like catches on fire or something like that. That also happens in Ghost Rider, which stars Nicolas Cage. They pull that same trick again. But anyway, Gale and Neville rob a bank, but leave Junior there as they make their getaway. One of the bank's anti-theft dye canisters explodes in their loot sack, blocking the car's windows and incapacitating them. At the bank, Smalls arrives for Junior just ahead of Ed and High. Ed grabs the baby and flees. High is able to fend off Smalls for a while, but eventually finds himself at Smalls' mercy when Smalls punches High in the face several times. As Smalls throws High to the ground and prepares to kill him, High holds up his hand to reveal that he has pulled the pin from one of his hand grenades on Smalls' vest. Smalls attempts to get rid of the grenade, but he cannot get it off in time and is blown to pieces when the grenade explodes and sets off all of his weapons.
This is another hilarious scene. The battle between High and Leonard Smalls was starting off with the amazing board across the face, while he's riding the motorcycle. But what's great about the whole thing is you see, as soon as High hits him, he realizes he's in trouble. And when he starts like retching, he's actually like, looks like he's throwing up just at the thought of getting his ass kicked. And then, he finally does. But again, the physical comedy that Nicolas Cage is doing in this scene, with like the one eye bigger than the other and like crawling under the truck and getting dragged back out and stuff like that. It's all just really great. The way when he pulls the pin and Leonard Smalls looking at him and he just says, "I'm sorry." It's so well done that again, it's the sort of thing where you could watch this scene over and over and over again, and you cannot help but laugh. I found myself laughing out loud.
Yeah, I want to talk about the scene right up before this. We talk about how the Coen brothers really focus on every character on screen. They're there for a reason. The entire bank heist, to me, is it's wonderful. When they start giving contradictory orders to all the people in the bank, and the one patron says, "Well, which is it, fella? If you want me to freeze, then I can't get down, because if I get down, then I have to move. So which is it you'd like me to do?" And he goes, "Well, just ignore that first rule and get down." And then he goes, "Where'd the tellers? Did the tellers run?" And they're like, "No, sir, we're on the ground where you told us to be." That shit just had me laughing. I was on a plane that was packed at like 8 a.m, and I was laughing out loud audibly, and I didn't care.
Well, again, that's my favorite scene as well. John Goodman is brilliant in this movie. And in fact, this again set him on to start him. Shortly after this, he got the role for Roseanne. But up until then, he really hadn't done a whole lot of films or been in a lot of things. So this really was his prelude to stardom. But in addition to that scene and that dialogue with those ancillary characters that just make this movie brilliant, when Holly Hunter comes running in with Junior, and as soon as she enters the bank, the people like get on the ground, ma'am. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's still going. The joke is still pushed forward. Like, that kind of humor, again, and I think it's attention to details that really puts the Coen brothers and all their projects head and above other movie makers.
And that carries over from the earlier robbery too, where they had the guy counting and he's like, "Oh, bullshit." Then he's like, they come back and he's like, goes back down. And that guy, I'm of course talking about the guy that delivered the infamous line of not unless you think round is funny, as far as like balloons blowing up in funny shapes. But again, they revisit these jokes, Nathan Jr. being left behind, stuff like that. It's just the universe is not static. If you go back to other places, again, when they go back for the Huggies, when he's inexplicably giving Ed directions on where to drive, and then he remembers exactly where the Huggies are. So that world feels very real, very three-dimensional.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Ed and High sneak Junior back into the Nathan, Arizona homestead and are confronted by Nathan Sr. After Nathan Sr. learns why they took his son, he understands the couple's predicament and decides not to turn them over to the police. He counsels them. When High and Ed say that they are splitting up, he advises them to sleep on it. High and Ed go to sleep in the same bed, and High has a dream about Gale and Neville reforming after returning to prison, realizing they weren't ready to come out into the world. Glenn gets his due from a Polish-American police officer whom he has no luck getting to listen to his wild tales about High and Ed after he threw one Polak joke in too many. And Nathan Jr. gets a football for Christmas from a kindly couple who wish to remain unknown, later becoming a football star. The dream ends with the elderly couple, implied to be Hi and Ed, enjoying together a holiday visit from a large family of children and grandchildren. End movie.
So perhaps the only thing that's going to keep me from giving this movie a perfect rating is the fact that they did not distinguish between Arizona State and the University of Arizona. I found this very offensive. He was wearing gold and white with Arizona on the front. That would never happen.
And he was playing against a team that was maroon and gold.
Yeah, I just make them Arizona State, and you got my vote, Coen Brothers. You cost yourself a 0 score, so I'm sorry there. But, as an adult, this last scene where the whole family's getting together and this tranquil dream sequence, this is the first time I really got choked up about the end scene. Before, it never really had an emotional impact on me. And I realized that I really had a reason to care about Hi and Ed, more so than any other characters. I really cared about their fate. I really cared about their feelings. And particularly Hi, I had a great affection for him. So if you could do a comedy that's silly and at the end you get a little tug on the heartstring, you get a little sentiment, that's a no small feat. And I really applaud the Coen brothers for pulling it off.
Yeah, this movie, this end part in particular, had an immediate impact on me. As I was boarding the flight, my wife and I had a disagreement on something to do that really, in the end, isn't important. But I got on the plane hot and bothered. She was angry. And as the movie's going on, and it really highlighting the importance of family and legacy and kind of what really matters to you, this final scene really had me thinking, and it just made me realize how many times that we focus on things and get hung up on unimportant details or little things throughout our day, and we miss the big picture. So immediately after we landed, I called my wife, and we hashed it all out, and it really made me this beautiful ending it's up in the air still. You don't know, was it a dream? Is it a premonition of what will come? But it does really drive home what's important, and it is the people around you, your family, and those that you love. And I thought it was a great bow on a great movie.
Yeah, so I mean, is Hi psychic? Is that what we're supposed to infer from this movie? Because, he had the premonition about the motorcycle rider. And he's always having premonitions about, what's happening in the future with Nathan Jr. and whatnot. And he's seen in himself possibly in the future. I think Hi might have a career as a telephone psychic.
I think it could be that Hi is simply realizing the actions that he does have ramifications. The biker was a physical manifestation of the anguish that he knew the Arizona's mother would have. So he's seeing that his actions, he's no longer just a passive player. That if he wants his life to be better and wants a family, he'll have to actually make it happen.
That's great. Well, that's now's the time of the...
Well, but you want me to... No, I don't think he's psychic. I just think he realizes he's going to be accountable.
That's great.
Now's the time of the podcast where we break out our Shat meter and give you our score. How many wipes this movie would need to take off your butt if you've never listened to the podcast, or you keep forgetting what the Shat meter is. It's a 0 to 5 scale. 0 wipes is like Arizona climate. It's dry, so nothing sticks to your butt cheeks, requiring any kind of toilet paper whatsoever. And 5 wipes is the kind of disaster that explodes all over your restroom, just like a blue dye pack would after robbing the local hayseed bank. So with that being said, how many wipes, gentlemen, would you give Raising Arizona? We'll start with you, Big D.
I got to be honest. I'm trying to pull up here and see how we've rated other comedies, but without even looking at that, I think it's got to be a 1. It is a truly unique comedy that has genuine heart. I would watch it again. Is it perfect? No. Is it still that little time capsule of the 80s? But I think it's pretty damn good. And of all the comedies that we've watched, this would be the one that I think I'd have to rewatch right now. There's no downtime. There's no real characters I couldn't stand. So it's beautiful to look at, as we discussed. I think 1 is fair. I would even maybe go a little lower, but I think 1 is a great mark to give it.
All right, that's 1 wipe from Big D. Gene, how many wipes would you give this movie?
Yeah, I'd like to echo everything Big D said, although I think it's a little bit better movie than he's giving it credit for. For me, this is a half a wipe movie. Again, that might be partly sentimentality because it's a landscape that I recognize and a time in my life that I recognize. But for any Arizona, this is a near perfect movie. I say, if there are there any flaws at all, I wouldn't say that it's got the artistic mastery that say a Pulp Fiction had. It is still told in a fairly standard way. There was some parts of it that were just tired. The mopping guy in the jail that he passes by every time. We get it. It's so there were some parts that were imperfect. But I would say half a wipe for me.
Okay, and now don't kill me, guys, because I enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed looking back at this movie, but I did fall asleep in it. It's not a hijinks movie. It's a New Yorker comedy, and what I mean by that is that it's very highbrow.
Hold on. Were you high? Were you sober at the time?
Well, I was very sober. Yeah, but I was jet lagged because I just got back from New York City.
How old are you?
Right now, I'm in my mid-30s.
This is back-to-back movies you're falling asleep. This might be a medical condition and not the movies we're watching.
Listen, it was Blade Runner, okay? Anyone's going to fall asleep to that.
We might have to start dating, Raj.
Oh, geez. So I'm going to give this a 2-wipe movie. I think it's great. I think it's a fantastic movie. But compared to other comedies like Coming to America, I feel like Coming to America is a little bit better. And I know this holds a soft spot in a lot of people's hearts, but if you were to combine all our 3 scores, it's a 1.16 repeated, which is still a fantastic score. So where does this put this in the pantheon of Shat the Movies reviews?
Well, just to give you some perspective, Raj, you think Raising Arizona is as good as Gremlins, Tombstone, and Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, see, perfect. That's exactly.
So that feels good?
That feels right. That feels right.
Okay, so what was it? 1.6?
1.12.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. So that puts
I'm sorry. 1.16. Repeating. So 1.2.
Oh, yeah. So this is our highest ranking comedy to date. It is a little bit above Coming to America, and it's solidly in the 4 spot.
This is the Blade Runner of comedies for some people. They only have it in their collection because they want to impress people.
No.
There is no downtime during this movie. The whole thing is
It's a tight movie. Don't get me wrong. It's a tight 93 minutes. All I'm saying is that some people don't get this movie, yet they still own it.
I got to be honest. I wanted to hate this movie. When they voted for it, I wanted to hate it. I didn't want to watch it. I usually hate pretentious comedies like Wes Anderson. I can't stand generally. But this was laugh out loud funny and original. Well acted, well written, beautiful. It was tight. For you to say it's a 2 or to compare this with some of that other schlock, I think is disrespectful.
What I love is that he calls it a highbrow New York comedy. I got to remind you, there is this scene where there's a man with Huggies and pantyhose on his head running down the street with banjo music and yodeling, with cops chasing him, shooting guns, people getting hit in the head with sticks. Like, what the fuck? What is highbrow about this?
It's the language. It's the dialogue.
The language?
It's the language connected with that.
Wow, you guys are actually pretty good at that.
Yeah, they are because it's them making fun. And Herb Drinkwater, he probably got offended. He was like, "This is them New Yorkers making fun of us here in Arizona."
So, buy a Kachina doll. Buy some turquoise.
So that concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Big D, what are next week's? What can we look forward to?
Well, next week is one of the categories I was really looking forward to, and it didn't go my way. 1990s disaster movies. So we had Titanic, Armageddon, Independence Day, and Twister. Which way you think it went?
Well, recently with Bill Paxton's passing, I would probably say that people were probably predicated to vote for Twister. Am I right on that?
You're 100% correct. With almost 60% of the vote, Twister, I cannot wait because this is a shit show of a movie.
What?
I remember watching it I remember watching it in college and getting high, and the guy across the street from me, Larry, him and I used to critique movies. And when we started Shat the Movies, Twister was one of those I could not wait to do just because of all the cheesy storm chasing dialogue, the flying cars, the exploding tankers. This is a Michael Bay 90s shit show, and I'm going to love it.
Forget flying cars, flying cow in this movie. You've also got, I think they run into 7 tornadoes in like one weekend. Like, look, dude, I lived in Tornado Alley in Ohio, and for 5 years, and we saw maybe 3 funnel clouds, 1 actually touched down in my town. 7 there are lifelong storm chasers that don't see that many. My girlfriend tried to show me this movie about a year ago to watch it because I'd never really watched it in entirety. It is garbage. I cannot wait.
Come on, what about the hierarchy of storm chasers? There's like the corporate storm chasers who have the nice storm chasing cars. Yeah. And the other one's like, oh no, those guys, those don't do it for the right reason. You know, they're not real. We keep it real. That's a Cat 5. Let's load up. I cannot wait.
This has all the elements of a fantastic movie that Roger Roper looks for. It was directed by Jan de Bont, so like a foreign director. Right? On a screenplay based by Michael Crichton and music by Eddie Van Halen. How do you guys hate this movie? It also inspired a ride at Universal Studios Florida.
Yeah, and the two most likable characters are dead. So that's great.
I cannot wait to do this movie. I love this movie. I remember going on dates, a date to this movie, and then going to Chili's afterwards. That was my go-to.
This is the natural disaster equivalent of Starship Troopers.
What are you talking about?
It's so bad, it's
brilliant.
Disaster. Yeah.
Oh, shut up.
No. I will defend his statement all day long, sir. Starship Troopers is a political movie.
It's a great movie
with bugs.
Do your part. You're so full.
Sign up now.
Yeah, it's satire.
Yeah. Twister is fantastic. I cannot wait to do this. So for all my tornado heads out there, get ready for great review by Shat the Movies next week. So that's what we're doing.
You just like the group showers in Starship Troopers. That's your only reason.
Listen, it's the future. When is that coming? So that's what you can look forward to for next week. Be sure to rent or download or wherever you get your movies, Twister, and then listen to next week's review. Gene, are there any Shat outs this week?
If there are, I didn't check them. I'll let you know about them next week.
All right. Well, that concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're everywhere, including Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram. Follow at Shat the Movies. We're also on Facebook. Just search for Shat the Movies Podcast. Our website, where you can vote on those movies up to 7 weeks in advance, and is shatthemovies.com. But you can email us, and we keep getting fantastic requests for different themes. So thank you so much for people who are doing that. You can email us, hosts at shatthemovies.com. We also got a couple of emails based on a review of Blade Runner. One person completely agreed with us. Another person vehemently disagreed with us and was defending Blade Runner to their death. So if you keep sending us movies, maybe we can do like a Shat on TV read and response show. So please keep doing that. Again, the email address is hosts at shatthemovies.com. We're everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, and Game of Thrones. You can find all the information on our website, shatontv.com. On behalf of my two co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, and Gene Lyons, I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join us next Thursday for Twister. Thank you for listening. Good night and good luck.
But it was sweet when they killed